Hello, I'm Jolene Ivey. I'm the council person from Prince George's County and for District 5. And I really want to thank you all for being here tonight. The Redevelopment Authority is leading the redevelopment of the former Prince George's Hospital site. And it's really exciting for all of us, honestly. We have a number of elected officials are here, but our meeting time is so brief. I'm going to do the unthinkable and not acknowledge everyone. I do know that the mayor of Cheverly, Layla Riazi, is here, as well as the council members. And, you know, I would love to have everyone say a few words, but then we wouldn't have time to see this wonderful plan. So I'm just going to get started. First of all, on March 21st, 1944, Prince George's County opened Prince George's Hospital, and it had 100 beds. In its first 15 years, it grew to 385 beds, and it became the central healthcare facility in Prince George's County. And it is served as an area-wide trauma center, the second in Maryland. And those of us who live near the hospital say a prayer frequently when we see the helicopters bringing patients there. So the new hospital in Largo, which is opening in June, we're still getting used to the new name, which is University of Maryland Capital Region Health. When the new hospital opens, it's not going to be like a light switch where suddenly one building is closed and the other one opens. It's going to be more gradual, and we'll have more information as that time grows closer. But the new hospital will start operating around the third week of June. But the hospital that we've known and loved for so many years, leaving this location feels kind of odd. I think most of us who have just never known a time when it wasn't there. And since so many of us, and my family is included in this, has gone there for care, we really feel like it's like a member of our family in so many ways. So we will miss that hospital being there. We're grateful for the opportunity of the new hospital. And we're really excited about the opportunities of what we're going to have on the old hospital site. So that is what we're here to talk about today. Now, the Greater Cheverly Sector Plan laid out the vision for the property, which is what has ultimately led us to our meeting today. So the first step in this process is presenting some rough drafts, and we'll have some questions and comments. First, we're going to begin with Stephen Paul. He's the Executive Director of the Redevelopment Authority. Stephen?
Thank you, Council Member Ivey. Thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. I'm Stephen Paul. I'm the Executive Director of the Redevelopment Authority. And the Redevelopment Authority is a member of the executive branch of government, and we do redevelopment projects on behalf of the county government. A few projects that we've done nearby that you may be familiar with is the two new buildings that we have in Brentwood on Rhode Island Avenue at 38th, and then a block away, right up the street. If you haven't seen those, go by and you can see them. It's two really nice projects that we've been successful with. So what we really want to get accomplished tonight is one is to go through just in a real cursory way, is what types of development could go here. So what you're going to see tonight on paper is just a rough concept, and it just shows the types of things that could go here, not that's going to go here. This is just a very beginning of a very long process to get actual buildings here. So what we're really trying to achieve ultimately with the development, though, is to have a moderate density type of mixed use development. What we're trying to do is create a place where folks can walk to and have like a town square, sort of like a mini downtown area, have retail, food and drink establishments, green spaces, just, you know, a component that the area doesn't have right now, just a real walkable urban type of neighborhood. And also, you know, one of our major goals, and we do this with all our developments, and we're certainly going to do it here, is like we like to do things in a green and sustainable way. So the ecology is going to be a real big part of what we do here. We're going to have solar power generated on site. We'll have as much green space as possible, green walking trails, probably green roofs. We'll have LEED certified buildings. We'll do everything that we can do to make this as environmentally sustainable as possible. State-of-the-art stormwater management techniques as well. As I said a minute ago, it's a long process to get from where we are now with an operating hospital on site for a little while longer to a brand new neighborhood. So it's a process. It's going to take several years to get the first buildings up and open. But in the near term, what we're going to do is try and get a broad consensus on the types of development that can go there through these presentations to the community. And then later in the spring, we'll go through a process to attract a major master developer to take over the role of actually developing the site in partnership with the Redevelopment Authority. We should have that developer selected probably by late summer or fall. And at that point, the formal entitlement process would begin. And it's probably about a 2-year entitlement process where the plans get approved and then the permit process to actually get permits to start the first construction. So we're going to do a short presentation. We're going to try and walk through it in 10 minutes or 12 minutes at most. So there's plenty of time for questions. If there's not enough time for everybody to get a question or make the comment, don't panic. We do have an email that you can submit questions in writing to, and we will answer those and post answers on our website. Also, the presentation that you're going to see tonight will be posted on the website, so don't feel like you have to write everything down. You will have access to it after the meeting. And then finally, there will be more meetings. This is not going to be the only one. So the next one will be the first week of March, I believe. It'll be a Town of Cheverly council meeting where this will be the main agenda item. And I don't have the date on that, but you'll be hearing about that shortly. So if we don't get to you tonight or you just want to see it again, you can join that meeting as well. So with that, let's get to the presentation. So I'm going to turn it over to our design team who put this together from Grimm and Parker, Ashish Mayer and Lauren Gilmartin. So guys, you can go ahead and take this away.
Sure. Thank you, Steve. Hi, my name is Ashish Meyer. I'm a project manager with Grimm and Parker Architects. In today's agenda, we're going to walk you through how we are processing this entire design and master plan of the site here. So first, we're going to have a little introduction of the team, a little site analysis. Then we have 2 schemes to present to you. One we're calling out the town center scheme, and the other one is the village scheme. And after that, we can go through the next steps that we are going to follow through and how you can reach to this presentation eventually comes to the end. So with that, let's go through our team here is, of course, with the Redevelopment Authority of Prince George's County. We at Grimm and Parker, I'm the project manager, Logan Mell and Lauren Gilmartin, who is our master planner. We are working on this with Saltes, who are the civil engineers. Tim, Ken, and John will be the ones who will be helping us in this effort. We have Lenhart as our traffic consultants, Gingles, who are helping us with the zoning, and Forella is helping us with the cost estimation of any of the work that we will be doing with the site. So that I would like to introduce what's happening at the site. Most of you know this site and what is around it. I would like to introduce how the site is actually working for us here. We have Baltimore Washington Parkway on the west as it goes up and down on the site. The site itself is perched up about 65 feet at the highest point, and it has severe grades that bring us down to about 20 feet above the rest of the Cheverly town as you go further north from the highest point where the cell tower is. You have Metro Station across from Route 50, and you have 202 on the north of the site. Those 2 portions of the triangle that is formed between the Baltimore Washington Parkway, 202 and 50 is connected by the Cheverly Avenue that starts from the Metro Station. And we have some connection possibilities to the site from Lockwood, We have the next one at Inwood, and also a possibility of connection through Greenleaf, which is possible, albeit it brings up a lot of physical constraints to connect through the Greenleaf. We do have large green areas on the north and the one in the south as well. And of course, then there's the industrial zone that comes all the way in the bottom of the site on the south of it. When we started investigating the site, we used the sector plan as our guide here to find out what are the goals that we want to achieve. And a couple of things that came up primarily was what are the facade improvements we can do to the development here? Can we bring in public art to the site? How can we establish some urban edges and bring the community out into the open with large urban spaces that brings everyone together? How can we improve the quality of spaces and the residential fabric itself? And what kind of environmental amenities and environmental pieces that we can bring in that helps bring in the new development together with the existing town. We looked at the walkability of existing town, and we found out that Cheverly itself is right now scored at 42 in comparison to Silver Spring, which is at 59, and DC at 88. What that means is that people have to actually drive to get the basic amenities need, for example, to the movie theaters, to the grocery stores, to any of the community-related elements. You have to drive, it's not very walkable. And those started to become the goals that we wanted to set up as we develop this new site. So we set up these goals in conjunction with the sector plan as goal number 1, to strengthen our Maryland 202 corridor that accommodates the shopping, the dining, and all the gathering spaces. With the gathering spaces, we feel the need for amenities, facade improvement, art, public art to come in there. And of course, that brings us how we can do the protection of the neighborhood character while improving the choices for the existing residential fabric, and also improve the health of the community itself. When we started looking at that, we set up a few of the program needs. For example, a new community center, a childcare, some restaurants, dining facilities, pharmacy, grocery stores, fitness center, boutique shopping, health clinic, some doctor's offices perhaps, large green spaces, maybe an ice rink. That came up as one of the major programs that we could look into how we can accommodate into this development. So with that, I bring you the first scheme. We are calling this as a town center scheme. What you're looking at is what is going to happen. And I'll let Lauren explain it more so she has a better handle on how she can explain it. Lauren, can you take it over from here, please?
Yeah, sure. So the first scheme we're going to walk you through is our Cheverly Town Center scheme. This is the moderate density scheme that offers the most robust amenities on the site. It has the widest residential choice in terms of mix between multifamily, senior, and townhomes. And then this also has the most retail space. So Shisha, if you could move to the next slide. So the main organization of this site is a large central town square in the center of this scheme, with the main access points being the existing road access from the north and the southwest. And we're also proposing to introduce some additional connections from Lockwood and Inwood, possibly Greenleaf if the topography allows it. And this scheme is mostly made up of, like I said, a central town square with retail, multifamily around it, as well as some larger terraced green spaces to the southwest. And then we're also introducing some townhomes that'll line sort of the south of the site and creates a really nice transition between the existing neighborhood and the new site. We're also introducing here a site trail that circumvents the site and will create a connection between the two north and south park spaces, so adding an additional site amenity. And then another thing we wanted to point out about this scheme is we're proposing to keep the existing parking structure. This parking structure could by itself handle all of the visitors and retail parking. And it's also a big cost saver. So we think it's really important to keep here and works really well in this scheme because we're able to sort of conceal it behind the new construction and then, you know, keep the existing parking. This scheme will have about 1,200 total living units between 924 multifamily units, about 66 townhomes, and then 144 senior units. And we're also proposing a hotel a little bit south here of the existing PG Health Center office building. This is an aerial view. So one thing we'd really like to point out about this scheme is we're really taking advantage of the nice views that are on this site. So you'll see this terraced garden overlook. That's the highest point on the site. And we've created this really nice formal garden where all of the apartment views sort of look out over this vantage point. It's a really nice space. It could be more of like the quieter, nice garden space of the site. With a very clear connection to the town square just 2 blocks over. So we think this scheme offers a lot of really different site amenities, lots of residential choice, and introduces a lot of really exciting activated spaces to the Chevrolet community. I think it might be lagging for me a little bit. Did you move to the next one, Ashish?
Yeah, sure. So what we're looking at here is a conceptual view of what this town square could actually be. This is what you come to when you come in straight from that Main Street connection from the Lockwood. And programs like a brewery, a coffee shop, a gourmet bakery, maybe a plaza where you can have a little jazz band playing in the corner, a splash fountain. That kind of program is what we could add to here that brings the community together, especially in the summer. And that's how we envision this space to develop as we move forward. The next is the village scheme, as we call it. Lauren, you want to explain the village scheme?
Yeah, sure. So this is our more low density scheme. I think we're proposing a total of about 600 living units on this site, so about half of scheme 1. This scheme offers a similar town square, but it's sort of restricted to just that 1 block where there'd still be a little bit of retail, you know, coffee shops, gourmet food, food and drink, etc., but it would be confined to that 1 block area. And then the rest of the site is more of a quiet village scheme, mostly with townhomes. And we're also proposing a little senior village sort of on the top high vantage point of the site. Again, introducing an Inwood and Lockwood connection here so that it's easily walkable from the community, the existing Chevrolet community to get to the site. But again, the main thoroughfares would be from the north and southwest entry points. This scheme also has a large green space in the center. So, you know, what we're lacking in lots of retail space, we're getting back in some.
So I think Lauren lost her internet connection here. I'm going to continue from where she left. What we're looking at here is we have about 650 units. The retail and other community spaces, that brings up another 100,000 square feet of that. We have this large Monica, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, for a second I thought maybe I have also lost the connection here. I apologize. So what we are seeing in here is this large green space that becomes a central feature that runs in the other direction and bringing the senior village closer to the town square, keeping that as a quiet zone. A very suburban feeling to this kind of a development. The biggest challenge with this kind of a scheme is that because of the low density, the infrastructure development on a terrain, which is what we have on the existing site, becomes really expensive and creates a lot of challenge for development. Here's how this could look in 3D. A large green over here, the senior village on one side, townhomes flanked along the south edge of the property, and mid-rises along the town square, and the existing health department buildings still preserved. So with that, we come to the next steps of what we want to do here. And Steve, you want to take over from here?
Yeah, sure. I forgot to take myself on mute there for a second. Yeah, so first thing we're going to do is respond to any questions that get submitted through the email and the website that we're going to give you on the next slide, if we don't get to everybody tonight. There's also going to be a Town of Cheverly meeting first week of March. There may be additional community meetings if we need them. We do plan on issuing a request for proposals. That's the process that we're going to go through to select a master developer. Essentially what that means is we advertise the opportunity. Various development teams that have an interest in the site put together a detailed proposal on what they would do and how they would do it, and they submit that to us, and then we evaluate them and we make a selection. That probably best case is we'll make that selection in the fall of this year, and then the entitlement process begins at that point. Entitlement process generally is a 2-year process, but by the time you get plans approved and then get to actual permits and get the financing finalized, so we're about 2 years away. We're 2.5 years away from the actual start of phase 1 construction on this. Okay, I think let's just go to the next slide so then we can give everybody a chance to write this down, the email and the website. And then Monica, we can just go ahead and start on questions. Do you want to start picking those?
Are we at questions, or are you going to provide the information first?
It's 2 questions, but we can back up the slide, and just so that folks have more time to write down the website and the email.
Yeah,
Okay,
and
perfect.
while they're doing that, I just wanted to introduce the Melissa Day and Marlon Cruz from my staff are compiling the questions. Some of them are similar to others, so they're going to try to condense them and try to see how many we can get through. So one of you wants to begin?
Yeah, so let me start off because I saw a few of the first ones come in.
Sure. Okay.
They were all about the access, local streets, primarily Lockwood. So let me emphasize that the main access to the site is going to come from the north on 202 and from the Parkway, and from the south from Kenilworth Avenue. So all the external traffic is going to come and go from those 2 streets. We thought it's important to open up 2 local connections with Lockwood and Inwood, because that's where the folks who live in the town of Cheverly proper would have easy access. You don't have to go through stoplights and onto highways to get to a site that could really be your town square in the town center. Most folks that live within town would actually be able to walk to the site. And if you don't want to walk up the hill, because you do have to walk up the hill, it'd be an easy drive, but it would not be a lot of increased traffic on those streets.
Okay. Would you like for me to read the first question?
Yes.
Okay. The first one looks like it says, can a local solar Prince George's County company that is NABCEP certified bid for the opportunity to provide the solar solutions for the redevelopment project?
Yeah, so the easy answer to that is yes. All our projects, we like to do as much local participation as possible, and we will do that here. So there will be opportunities for local companies to participate.
Marlon, would you like to take the next one?
Yeah, there's a question asking, what exactly do they mean by metro access for the hospital site?
Well, this site is not directly next to the metro station. So what we probably would figure out a way to operate a shuttle to have the residents who would be living there be able to get to the metro without having to drive or walk. So that's something that would be considered. The association overseeing the would probably would run a shuttle.
Okay, the next one looks like it's a three-part question, maybe. It says, does the county plan to rework the intersection at Route 50, 459 to Tuxedo Road, 201 Kenilworth, in anticipation of increased traffic that will come with redevelopment of the hospital site?
Yeah, so at this point, I don't believe that is in the plans, but as part of the development process, like all development processes, there will be a traffic study required. And so that will be done. And the results of that study will determine what off-site road improvements will be necessary to make sure that we have, smooth flowing traffic in and out of the site. So it's a possibility, but it's not planned right now.
Okay, the next part is asking, is there a map displaying what exactly of the hospital will be initially available for development?
Yeah, so unfortunately, we don't have that much detail yet. The folks at the health department and the county that are doing this are otherwise occupied with the getting the vaccines out to everybody. And I just don't have a detailed plan from them yet. We should have that in the next couple of months or so and be able to figure out exactly who's moving when and what parts of the site are going to go dark when. But I can tell you, by the time we get to the point where actual buildings are going to be going up and under construction, the whole site will be available.
Okay, and
by then.
Sure. And they're also asking what developers have expressed interest.
Well, I've just heard rumors that there are a couple development teams that are interested. One I don't know the name of, and then the other is led by Republic Properties, which is a very large, experienced developer based in DC. I know they've looked at the site in some detail.
Okay. Marlon, would you like to take the next one?
Yes, there's a question asking, isn't this a relatively small overall space in which to fit both commercial and residential occupancy?
No, actually, this is a large development. This is about 26 acres total. To do a redevelopment project on 26 acres, that's big. That's enough to do a brand new neighborhood, which is what we're looking to put here. So a mix of uses on 26 acres is appropriate, and it's actually the right size. You could even do it on a smaller piece if you needed to, but 26 acres is plenty big enough to do what we're talking about here.
Next question.
Okay. Sorry about that. The next one is, let's see. Has a traffic study been done and existing and impact of new housing? Existing and impacting of new housing.
As part of this process, we did do a very, very preliminary traffic study. And the results show that the traffic probably will go smoothly, well, without major off-site improvements. And Ken Dunn from Soltez is on the line. He's our engineer and might want to just spend another 20 seconds to give any more details.
All right, in 20 seconds. Thanks, Steve. We did look at a very high level at the traffic. And what we did was we took an older traffic study from about 2018 that we could find for the hospital. And when we compared that to peak hour trips for both the AM and PM timeframes, we found that in the AM, this development that we show on our proposed examples here actually provides less traffic. And at the PM peak hour, there's about 25 additional trips. So the impact was fairly negligible. And in fact, in some directions was very positive. We studied some of the more obvious intersections in and around the hospital site itself.
Okay, another question is, why focus on creating more population density in Cheverly when existing Cheverly residents are probably more interested in having access to more commercial services and sites than on boosting the population of the town?
Well, to get the amenities that we're talking about in a site like this, where you might get a grocery store and other retail, food and drink establishments, et cetera, you need to add some rooftops. It's just, you're not going to get that retail. You're just not going to get a shopping center with only retail and commercial uses with parking lots and to go in a site like this. It would have to be a mixed use type of walkable urban type of center to get the types of uses that I think the town would like to see here.
When people from neighboring communities use the commercial space?
Yes. Yeah, this would be available for folks. This will be a destination type of spot. So folks from neighboring communities would love to come here as well.
If that's the case, then why would you need to have rooftops in order to make it sustainable? If other people in joining communities would be using the commercial establishments.
Because it's still, you still need the density right on site to make it attractive for some of those types of uses.
Right. Steve, I can add to it that the study says that the traffic that we are talking about here from neighborhood developments it's a weekend traffic. It's not a daily traffic. And for a retailer to sustain themselves on a daily basis, they need local residents there. So that would not give them enough sustainability by neighborhood development itself.
So there's another question about specific, a couple of questions about specific amenities is asking about a dog park and also roller skating rinks instead of an ice skating rink.
Yeah, so the amenities we were showing tonight are just examples of what could go there. So it's not set in stone. Types of uses like a roller skating area or dog park certainly can be incorporated, and those are the type of uses that we'd like to see here. So yes, that can be done. It doesn't mean we are going to do those exact things. It just means that that's the type of amenities we're looking at putting here.
Okay, next question is regarding the RFP you just mentioned. Will it be structured to award for the highest upfront check to the county or the best value over the lifetime of the project, including the best value to the town and county?
Yes, it certainly will. We will look at best value. The first thing we look at when we do RFPs is what is the development team proposing? What they're proposing to build is the number one criteria that we evaluate on. That goes ahead of everything else. The second thing that we look at is the development team capable of doing what they say they're going to do? Do they have the experience? Do they have the financing capacity to build the grand scheme that they're proposing to build? And then the third thing we look at is value in terms of return, a fair return to the redevelopment authority and to the county. But there's no point in getting that return if we're going to have a development that the community doesn't like or is not great for the community.
Next question is asking, is the development going to be annexed into Cheverly, or is Cheverly just going to suffer from more traffic problems?
Well, the first thing is we're going to do the road improvements that are necessary so that there's not going to be severe traffic problems, although there will be a little bit more traffic. I mean, when you do a development like this, having more traffic is a good thing. It means the development's working. As far as annexation goes, it's a lot easier to get through this development process now while it's not within a municipality. So we're going to get through the development process without looking at annexation. And then once we get through all that and we've got a nice community up and running, the annexation issue can be revisited.
Okay, another question is, how is RDA and the county thinking about improving north-south access and also make access more amenable to other modes of transportation and better public transport access?
Yeah, that's a lot of questions. So as I said earlier, improving the north and south access is something we're going to have to look at through the more detailed traffic study that'll get done while we go through the entitlement process. Doing major improvements there they're big ticket items, and we'll just have to see and what that's going to cost and what the benefits are, and actually what's required as well, and what's required to make this development work. Other modes of transportation, I already mentioned that it makes sense to have a shuttle, and we do want to make this walkable, which also means it's going to be bikeable as well. So there will be trails. There will be connections from the town so that folks can walk and bike into it. But yeah, that's part of being green and sustainable, is to have multiple ways to get in and out of the site, not just vehicles.
Next question asks, what additional funding or facilities will be available to local elementary schools who will likely see a jump in enrollment? Both Spelman and Bladensburg Elementary School are close to capacity.
Well, the biggest benefit from a funding standpoint doing this redevelopment is the ground will go from public to private, and we'll be back on the tax rolls. And doing this moderate or medium density type of development will be a significant boost in property taxes. How those get directed is the normal political process will determine that, but this will be a huge improvement to the tax base of the county, from going from a zero tax base generated by the hospital to a moderate density mixed use development.
Okay, someone wants to know, will trees be cut for any of this development?
Well, some of the trees that are on site now will have to be cut down, but we're not talking about cutting down forest land, and we're going to have as much green space as possible. So, the site is largely developed now. So it's not like there's sensitive tree cover there, but what can be saved will be saved. And we'll be planting quite a bit of trees and keeping the green trails, et cetera.
Someone asks, will the RFP ensure that small Prince George's County owned businesses have an opportunity to participate in the project?
Yes, in fact, that's one of the evaluation criteria that we will use. We'll score the development team on their local participation, and that local participation does mean Prince George's County, and it also does mean small businesses as well.
Okay, another one says, wondering about the actual role official input Cheverly will have into this, since this land isn't technically a part of Cheverly right now. Don't we have very little actual say? If it's going to be a Cheverly Town Center, shouldn't it be a part of Cheverly? What are the options for us and our role as a town?
Well, right away, the role is going to be what you're playing now, which is giving us your feedback, telling us what you like about it, what you don't like about it, what types of things you'd like to see here, which types of things you don't want to see here. And we'll be communicating with you throughout the process. You also have a role to play during the entitlement process, where you can become, the town can be a party of record and formally testify in front of the planning board when they're making these types of decisions. Again, and as far as becoming part of the town, it's much easier for us to get through a complicated development process if this is county owned and not in the municipality. But once it's up and running, and the infrastructure has been financed, and we've got those types of things worked out, revisiting the annexation question can be done. And if it makes sense for this to be part of the town proper, there's avenues to have that happen.
There's a question asking, how would the best value winning bidder be able to have the expertise to address environmental impact, like soil erosion, sediment control, given the site's elevation and history of being a medical facility?
Yeah, fortunately, as far as we know, being a medical facility doesn't add any unusual environmental issues to the site in terms of soil or water contamination. But of course, all that would have to be investigated, just like with any development. But the development team, this is a large site, and we're going to have to select a development team that's experienced, and that's somebody who has done this more than once with projects this big or bigger. And they're going to know how to do the environmental things, because that's going to be a requirement. That's going to be in the RFP that we issue, is that, we want to see a green, sustainable development, and, tell us, what you propose to do to meet that, and your experience in doing that previously.
Okay,
Another
another question. I'm sorry. Was that me echoing? Sorry about
No,
that.
that's me, Monica.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Will all existing buildings be demolished, or are there opportunities for reuse?
There will be some opportunities for reuse. I'm thinking right now what makes most sense is the parking garage should stay. I think it would cost a lot more to demolish that and rebuild than to do the capital improvements to it that would be necessary to extend its useful life. Another building that could stay would be where the health department is, at the entrance to the site from Route 202. That's one that I believe they're going to stay, at least in the near term. So that building will stay. I think the other buildings, all of them, or at least most of them, would be demolished and we start from scratch.
Okay. Another question is, does the redevelopment contemplate investment in making the connections for bike connection to Anacostia Trail? Otherwise, existing barriers such as BW Parkway, Route 50, 201, 295 interchange will make it difficult to fully realize the vision of greater bikeability and walkability for this site and to integrate into neighboring communities.
Yeah, that's a good question. We are going to look at the feasibility and opportunities to connect the trails on site to the more regional trail system that's nearby. It's close by, and you would think that would make it easy to connect, but it's not, because we do have the highways in between, and getting over highways with trails is expensive. But it is something we're going to look at. I mean, that would be ideal if we could figure out a way to get that done.
Someone asked, oh, I'm sorry. Someone asked, on the renderings, the health department building looks to be the same place as the proposed hotel. Also, what size hotel is feasible? Are there any limitations to the size of the hotel?
Well, there's no limitations to it right now. That's in there as just as a possible use. So whether a hotel even eventually goes in or not, really, we can't even determine at this point, but that's something that could go in. It probably would be a medium-sized hotel. It would cater to folks who want to use it for the immediate area, but also for tourists, because it's so close to downtown. So yeah, we'll just have to see, what type of hotel, or any hotel, would go in there.
Okay, next question is, has an assessment been made to environmental remediation and whether access to federal brownfield dollars or other federal funds to address the larger issues to help develop this site?
So no, it's too early to have done the detailed environmental assessment, but we will have to do that. And hopefully we won't need to access brownfield funds. We're hoping everything's going to be as clean as can be expected with a redevelopment project.
Someone asked, what's an example of a neighborhood like ours that had a development like this added on?
Yeah, a good example is a development that the RDA is doing right now in Suitland. That hospital, but that was a dilapidated 650 unit apartment complex. And when I say dilapidated, I mean, I'm being nice. It really was blighted. It was in a condition of a neighborhood you just normally wouldn't see in a suburban jurisdiction. And we went in there and over time bought out all 650 units and relocated the tenants and demolished all the buildings and started a brand new neighborhood. And that's about a third of the way constructed now. We put in a new street grid, new buildings. There's a senior building going up. It's got parks and trails. It's accessible to the Suitland Metro Station. So yeah, and that's been successful. And that was a really tough site in terms of neighborhood. We've got the advantage with this site of it being a much better site. It's close to DC. It's on top of a hill. It's got great views. It's got a great surrounding neighborhood. So we were successful in Suitland with a tougher neighborhood, so that bodes well for this site.
Okay, another question is, what would be the challenges or obstacles to incorporating the town center as a part of Cheverly after development is completed and up and running? Will the county want to let the town center go if the development is proposed?
Well, I can't give you a definitive
Prosperous.
answer on that now, but I can just say what I said earlier, is that question can be reconsidered then. If it makes sense for the landowners and for the county, to incorporate into the town, then that can be done.
There's a question that asked, are there going to be TIFs or other incentives?
It's too early to say for sure, but it's very expensive infrastructure that has to go in to make something like this happen. And then obviously there's going to be public streets running through here. So it's a possibility that we would use some sort of a public financing mechanism to offset some of the infrastructure costs. And the TIF, which is tax increment financing, is a viable possibility here.
There's also a question about if the property isn't annexed into Cheverly, then it isn't policed by Cheverly Police Department nor their code enforcement. What issues could arise from this?
Well, the county does provide those services. So if it was not annexed, the county would provide the code enforcement and the policing services. But also, if it's not annexed, this would have a community association involved with it, or something maybe even like a business improvement district, which would and it would have standards in terms of what everything's supposed to look like. So there'd even be an added layer of property standards type of enforcement and property maintenance requirements.
Okay, another question. I'm not sure if this one's been addressed or not, but it says, is there a tax revenue benefit for Cheverly with this development? Or is it nothing unless the land is part of Cheverly itself?
Well, the town, if it's not annexed by Cheverly at some point in the future, then right, the property taxes will go to the county and the various entities that property taxes go to. But right, the town direct taxing on the site if it was not annexed.
A question asks, how will the project benefit the existing businesses west and east of Landover Road?
Well, you're bringing new people. So there should be a huge spin-off benefit to the existing businesses. There's going to be more customers on site.
Okay, another question is back to this traffic issue. There are several people on this call who live on the blocks adjacent to the hospital site and who purchased their homes because they were on quiet streets. What can the developers do to keep traffic and parking on Lockwood, Tremont, Inwood streets manageable?
Well, parking is a different issue. If there was spillover parking, that's parking in neighborhood streets, there's ways to address that with parking permits so that it's not allowed. So that's an addressable issue. There should not be a huge amount of increased traffic, and we'll do traffic studies to figure out exactly what the increase would be, but it may not even be noticeable to the residents, just a few extra cars. But we'll have better answers as we get through this.
There's a question about the style of the buildings and how they would look. Also, there was a previous question similar, saying that most of the buildings in this area were brick style.
Yeah, so it's real early to determine what the actual architecture on the buildings is going to be. But certainly it makes sense to look at the existing neighborhood and use that as a starting point for what to do here. But that'll be part of the public approval process, and park and planning, the planning board will weigh in on the architecture, and everybody will get a chance to comment on the proposed architecture as we get through the entitlement process. But yeah, that's important. You know, the look of the neighborhood is important, and we want to get it right.
Okay, someone wants to know, will the cell towers remain where they are on the site?
I don't know the answer to that. Ideally, if we could get them to move, but they're not really too much in the way, so they could remain, but I got to look at the leases and see how long-term they are and what's the best options for that, because the leases are not with the redevelopment authority. They're with the county now. So that's just something that's got to be looked at. The cell towers and the water tower, I'm going to look at both of those.
There's a question about a plan for 5G development being built in.
We would certainly look at 5G. I mean, that's the future. Why would we do a development that's not 5G ready? I'm sure we're going to do that.
Well, would it be possible, this is Jolene now, would it be possible now for you to have a little bit of discussion now about next steps for the project?
Yeah, so we can do that. So the short-term next steps is we're going to address any questions that we didn't get to tonight. And you can do those via email, and we'll post the answers on our website. The second step is that there is going to be a second meeting. And it's going to be a Town of Cheverly meeting in the first week of March. And you'll be hearing about that from your town representatives. After that, we're going to take everything into consideration that we've heard here and what we hear then and what we hear via the email submissions. Tweak the plans if necessary, see which ones everybody seems to like the most. And then we're going to release the request for proposals. And if everything goes according to schedule, that should be done in the late spring. There'll probably be a 60-day turnaround time for that, which just means we'll advertise it and there'll be 60 days for folks to respond, put their proposals together, because it's detailed. They have to submit a detailed proposal to us. It takes quite a bit of effort to respond to one of these things. And then it's going to take probably 2 months after that to actually evaluate them all, score them, and make an award. That will happen in the fall of 2021 this year. So once we actually have a development team on board, then we can start working on plans that aren't just conceptual in nature. We can come back to the community with plans like, okay, this is really what we're thinking about building. And even to the point where we can even start identifying what types of architecture is going to be there. And again, there'll be a public process for that. But then you won't be just looking at what could go there. You're going to be looking at, okay, we think this is best and this is what we're going to try and put there. So it'll be more detailed. But all that will be happening from the fall through next spring. And then it'll be in front of the planning board sometime in 2022. And then after that, if you get the subdivision approved and detailed site plan approved, it goes in for permits. The first phase will go in for permits because this is a big enough site that, you know, we won't start construction on all these buildings at once. So there'll be a phase 1 and phase 2, phase 3, and it'll just go in phases. So phase 1 will start probably in 2 years, or 2 to 2.5 years will be construction. You probably would be able to walk into a building and order a cup of coffee or a meal in about 3 years. Any other questions?
Well,
Yeah.
there's a question that Dan Smith just sent that this seems like a good time for it. Who decides the final design concepts and the parameters that will be in the RFP?
So the parameters in the RFP are going to be decided by the RDA. I mean, that's what we do. But if there's things that you want to see in here, in terms of, you know, local participation, we heard some things tonight about local participation and the green aspects of it. You know, those are things that we put in them. We're going to put it in this one. We put them in all the ones that we do. But if you think it's something that you think should be in there, you know, respond to us via email and we'll look at that.
Okay, and actually, I'm seeing a number of questions about annexation. And even though I have answered this question and you have answered this question, it's still being asked. So let me be clear that the county executive's office sent a letter saying that this was not the time that they were going to consider annexing this site. It completely belongs to the county, 100%, and 25% of owners would have to agree to annexation. So that's just the fact. You can like it, you can hate it, you can be mad about it. That's just the fact. They own the land and they don't want to annex it right now. Maybe a few years ago, I understand it wouldn't have been such a bad idea, but right now they're in the middle, as you can see, of planning a huge development. It's very complicated and not the time to add another level of complexity is what the county executive said. I have her letter. I have shared it months ago with the mayor and the council. They're very aware. I shared it with the Cheverly Planning Board, and or at least I told them. I can't remember if I sent them the letter. So this is something that has been known, and I'm, whether any of us likes it or not, and I live here too, I can't wait to be able to walk over there. And I don't want to have to drive there. And I think that most people here want to be able to just easily get to that site. And so many people can't walk very far. So if you made it only a walking path between the town of Cheverly and the site, that it wouldn't be accessible for many seniors, for people with mobility issues. And we do want to make sure it's accessible to people. So keeping in mind that the only people who would use the interior roads are people from Cheverly. It doesn't seem like it would be an overwhelming amount of traffic, as they have said. On the one hand, I'm hearing an intense desire to annex the site, and I'm also hearing an intense desire to not have the site attached to the town. So I don't know what to do. I'm doing my best, work hard to represent the residents, and it's not just Cheverly. Keep in mind, many of the people on this call don't live in Cheverly. This is just this postcard that went out to in a 1 mile radius. We also put it out on Facebook and other social media. And many people who are on this call right now are not people who live in Cheverly. So please keep that in mind, that this is a big project that's important to the whole county and not just those of us who live right here. So, please try to be open. If you really don't want to be attached, I would say to think about what happened at National Harbor. The people who were already in houses down there were very upset when National Harbor was built. They insisted that a gate go up between, or a fence between their houses and National Harbor. And you know who's mad right now? The people who live in those houses who can't walk over to National Harbor. So, just keep that in mind. If it's something that you're really going to be against, then, the town of Cheverly could draw their line in the sand and make it inaccessible to the residents, but it doesn't seem to make sense to me. So in any event, I'm glad, Anne, that you're very excited about this. When I first saw the plans, and I have to tell you, I was super excited about the first one with all, skate rinks and all kinds of retail and different kinds of housing. I think it's super exciting. They told me to think about like Rockville Town Center for the people who've been there, a very exciting development. I wasn't as excited by the last one. Just housing seems kind of meh to me. One thing we complain about as Cheverly residents, at least, is there's no place to go. And, walking down the 7-Eleven is about all we have. So this is really an opportunity to have some new things to do and places to be. And, I'm excited about it. So I hope everyone else is too. So thank you so much. I don't know, Stephen, if you want to say anything else. We're nearing 8 o'clock, and I really do try to stay on a timeline.
Yeah, so I didn't have anything else to add. I just want to thank everybody for participating tonight. Your comments, were great, and it was good starting this discussion off. And again, we're going to have a second meeting, so feel free to participate in that one as well. And you'll be hearing about that one from your town officials. Thanks again for joining us tonight.
And thank you so much. We really appreciate your time and expertise.